What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your weekly movie podcast for reboots, remakes, adaptations, and sequels. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we are back in the DCEU, their pioneer movies since the pandemic, their first one since Birds of Prey, their sort of sequel, the aliens to their Alien of Suicide Squad, James Gunn's 2021's The Suicide Squad. Really important that we get the THE in there
That
for,
article isn't there. It's a completely different thing.
I'd rather say The Suicide Squad than have to just be like, Suicide Squad 2021 for the rest of my life. But as I've always said, we got to get our naming conventions, subtitles, numbers. Let's pick a lane.
Let's put a colon on this thing.
We had a lot of confusion on the lead up. Is it its own place? We know they're talking about multiverses. Are we in the DCEU? Are we a sequel? Did these events happen? I think it's clear that they did. We're in this world. We have enough actors returning. We just sort of aren't talking about anything else.
Yeah. It's like there's enough actors returning and there's enough, they recognize each other, that the ones that were there before recognize each other. They're like, oh, this is a sequel. It's just we will never talk about anything that happened in that movie.
So what did you think, Terrence?
Oh, wow. So I went in I hated the first David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I hated it. And these trailers that came out for this movie were not doing it for me. I was like, this isn't for me. It was very, very clear that he was doing a Guardians of the Galaxy repeat. And I was like, I don't think I want that necessarily with this. And then getting the movie, there's some of that there, but what I really loved is that this was just a bizarre, weird, just violent, unapologetic. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do with these characters. None of these folks really mean that much, so I can do whatever I want to with them. And what was crazy is that it felt nuts and bizarre and insane, but it also had some crazy good character moments. Like there's a lot of heart in this movie. And two of my favorite scenes that Harley has ever been a part of are in this movie, which is just bizarre because she's basically a tier 3 character in this film. But this is really, really well done. It's arguably one of my favorite DC films ever, but it's definitely my favorite DCEU film of the current run of stuff. I enjoyed this thoroughly from top. I've watched it twice, once in theater, once at home, and it did not get old to me yet.
No, I agree. I think this was it's interesting because I feel bad that this has to keep getting connected to David Ayer's movie. And I feel bad that so much of the narrative is, look at this better product. And that clearly David Ayer's movie got taken away from him.
Right. I was like,
recut.
Yeah.
A movie trailer company came in and movie trailered it up. Warner Brothers did what they do. I counted the last time I watched it, which was this week. There's like 10 songs in the first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not great.
They're easily, if you see the original trailer for the Suicide Squad, they're easily about 20 minutes, 25 minutes of footage just ripped out of that movie.
It's strange, but I don't dislike it as much as everybody else does. Upon rewatching it, I was like, the problem is that it's just kind of generic. It's just sort of a regular action movie. It doesn't feel eventized. It doesn't feel part of a bigger world. Will Smith's kind of back in form in an action context a little bit. I liked that. So I don't like that so many like tweets and articles I see are just like, ew, the first one.
Yeah, to big one up, we are actively trashing on the other one.
Yeah, I'm like, we can talk about these two movies without kicking one down, especially when we know how we just did this with Zack Snyder's Justice League for half a decade.
And this is definitely the same era where they were basically watching everything that was happening and pulling these films away from the actual auteur.
Now, that being said, I did like this one more, despite some small, we kind of did this in David Ayers. We've got another hitman character who can shoot anything, who's doing it for his daughter. That agency is the same. And I was like, well, we couldn't just find like anything else for him to do.
And it doesn't help that it's like the black lead and the black lead both have their daughters that they're doing. It's like, this just feels very old hat, but yes.
It feels like they want to just straight up remake the movie, but at the same time weren't upset about the first one. Like, it's so
They're
strange
like,
because I'm
that
like,
was the part of that first one we liked. So bring that back. Just get another black dude to do it, and we'll be fine.
yeah, I thought that was odd. So that kind of made me be like, yeah, I've been here before. But I really appreciated that we just kicked off this movie by doing the Suicide Squad. Everyone gets slaughtered. We have a whole team that gets shredded. That was a great, fun way to start a movie. I can't think of anything else that really kicks it off that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of slip in like one big character death amongst these other like scattered characters, like someone who I think we thought was going to be around for a while, but
Correct.
clearly is not going to be unless we just start jumping continuity around. Speaking of jumping in continuity around, I liked that we kind of kept doing these 8 minutes before, here's the other team, get caught up. But
And just
sometimes it was a bit much for me.
it,
Every
it
now and then
happened
I
a
was like,
lot.
let's just get on the train.
Yeah, I mean, it happened quite a bit, and I like the, I like. I'm a weird person for some of the camera styles and camera shots. The way that they introduced stuff was cool to me. How like the leaves would say
It's like,
now and all that stuff. I was like, oh, I dig this.
yeah, I'm a sucker for that kind of
Yeah,
Tarantino chapters, but with a little more flavor to it.
yeah, it worked for me.
Yeah, I liked that. I really dug, speaking of Tarantino, some of this like 80s, 70s grungy action we got. A lot of with Starro, who I'll talk about more in a minute, but some real like almost Cronenberg horror, these body horror moments, this
He gets into his Slither
gore.
bag on this one because there's some
Oh,
crazy body horror stuff
which
that
is
comes out of nowhere sometimes. Like, this is a cool ass action sequence, and we're gonna button it up with a violent just decapitation. I'm like, whoa, shit!
it was
Thank you.
great because we
Yeah,
also watched Birds of Prey again, which is still my favorite DCEU movie, but it's an R-rated movie that feels like it could have been PG-13 if we didn't blow up Ewan McGregor. This is
correct.
an R-rated
This is
movie that is
100% an R rated. Yeah,
R-rated. I
it
mean,
earns
like,
its R. Yeah,
and I was like, I loved that. These experiments we're doing, the violence, the thematic stuff you get from that really gives you, I think, a sense of how evil not Starro necessarily is, but like what people will do with that weapon. And I
yeah.
thought that was an interesting way to go about a kaiju story that we have seen a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something James Gunn did really well in this movie. He kept taking things that we've sort of done, that he's done before, especially in the Guardians movies and especially in Slither, and kept infusing it with different sort of things. We've kind of done the team of no people who don't have friends. Now they all come together and they're
We're
buddies at
family.
the end.
Yeah,
And we're sort of doing that again, but we change it up a little bit, I think, by having a lot more remorse in some of the actions and not really knowing where they go at the end. I think, Guardians has their something good, something bad.
yeah.
You kind of get the sense that these characters are just going to go their separate ways at the end
Right.
of this.
Like,
That
they
they're
might care about each other, they know each other, but they're not gonna really, these folks aren't gonna really hang out with each other. They're gonna go do their, like, Harley's gonna go be Harley somewhere. And you don't really expect them to hang out. Ratcatcher 2 might hang around with to find out more about Bloodshot just because of the relationship that they have. But yeah, you're right. These characters are not gonna be a unit after this.
which at first I think was the thing that was missing to me. Like the movie ended and I was like, there's some catharsis I'm not getting. And I was like, oh, I think it's a sense of like what's next for them. And the answer is like probably nothing.
Probably
Because
not
like
for this team. Because the
the
Suicide Squad
Suicide
changes every single time that they're their own script, like in their own comics or screen.
yeah.
So yeah.
Because what this movie establishes is that Amanda Waller's Task Force X is just anybody in Belle Reve, and she'll just
Right.
pick them for a mission and say, you know the drill.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're going to become like the Suicide Squad and hang out everywhere. So it is kind of a strange, like, well, now where do these people go? We don't really have a lot of DCEU continuity. We do have an HBO Max show coming for Peacemaker, but I thought that was kind of cool. We see the music stuff again. He's done this now twice in Guardians. We're doing it again here, and we did it in the first Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But
This one felt a
pretty
little bit more earned. It wasn't as aggressive needle drops as the first one was.
well, and it also wasn't 2 minutes of a song. It wasn't 30 seconds of
Correct.
Eminem and then 30 seconds of CCR and then 30 seconds of somebody else.
We just are playing shuffle all the time.
Yeah, no, they played music the way I did in high school when I was bored and I just kept hitting next for something.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
so that was good. The songs kind of matched up the sequences
they
better.
did.
Harley Quinn's big solo scene, which did feel very much like Yondu's arrow scene. Like, I think those are the moments where I'm like, I really like James Gunn as a director, and I think now I want to see him go do something not Guardians and
Not
Suicide
comic,
Squad.
yeah, not like this, yeah, like because there's a lot of stuff. There are like quite a few moments in here. I'm like, you know what? I want to see you do other. There's the shot of when it gives away a twist, so I won't talk about. But there's a shot where he uses the person's helmet to show a fight, and he's showing the fight through the helmet. I
Yeah,
was like, that's fucking
that's
genius.
great. I
I
had
love
never
this.
seen anyone do
Yeah,
that before. So, like, moments like that, everything we did with Polka Dot Man was incredible. Those are the
yeah.
things where I'm like, I really want to see him kind of get back to like Slither and Super now.
Yeah, yeah, he's clearly having fun and using a lot of the aces in his whole. I just want him to use them towards something that is not the exact same old hat that he's sort of become accustomed to.
But who knows? I mean, these studios seem to like to find a guy who gets the job done, and
You
then we're
do it,
just
so I'm gonna
gonna we're just
keep
gonna keep
keep
going.
cranking this out.
I thought that was good. I thought we did do these new characters were very well adapted. I really liked Bloodsport. I liked the stuff we did with Amanda Waller and her staff.
I
I
love the Amanda Waller staff stuff. Like Amanda Waller is the big bad, and that's why you sort of do the cold open with her just wiping out and having a plan and seeing how aggressive she is. Because you need to, as an audience, you need to believe that she will push the button for her to be able to threaten to push the button later. So when she actually does it at the beginning, like, oh, that makes sense. But I love the little. It reminded me of Cabin in the Woods, where the team is sort of watching the team, watching everybody sort of
yeah,
puppet and do
they're
that stuff.
placing bets. I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
that
yeah.
was great. They gave everybody like a little personality in there. Even that team got an arc of like everyone kind of
Correct.
sees. That was the other impressive thing about this movie. We kept seeing how like evil things could be.
Right. And there are levels to the evilness. Like people like, oh, that's bad, but I'm not willing to get that bad. So we need to kind of we need to level that off
Well, it
and
seems
cut
like
it
their
down.
line keeps being killing kids because
Right.
we have Idris Elba addressing it with Peacemaker. At least I don't kill kids.
Yeah.
That's Harley's entire thing and one of her big
Mm-hmm.
moments. It comes down to even the staff is like all of those kids where they're talking about Starro. That seems to keep being the
The
difference between like these people are bad, but we can
right.
redeem them.
But there is a
This is worse,
correct.
which I think you kind of need whenever you set up a villain arc.
There has to be a code. Otherwise, you're like, well, then how can I relate to this person in any way? Because
Right.
there is no stoppage of what they do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we watch them all murder people. But you know, we also do that with Deadpool and anti-heroes, and the moral compass of what an audience will be like, I liked them. You know, we're watching both Harley and Loki go through these massive redemption arcs where I think a couple years ago, both of those characters would have been unforgivable in comics, video games, movies, or anywhere else. They would have been some of
Correct.
the worst. And now we're like, but they're nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
And she
just,
has one my favorite moment that I've seen Harley. Like her action sequence is great. That's fantastic in itself. But it's the beat before that when she makes a sort of a turn and she has this whole revelation about her and her relationship to men. That I was just like, oh, that's heartbreaking. It's
yeah, it was interesting because we didn't really push her arc forward,
no
but we learned more about her current position.
right,
Because if you go back to the first Suicide Squad, when she's still entranced by the Joker, then we see her in Birds of Prey become independent and self reliant, and I don't need any of this, and I'm going to go be my own person. And what does that mean? And now we're kind of just seeing this like, I'm taking the steps to not make these mistakes again,
right.
which is interesting because that's, you know, part of what we see on the internet a lot of like, well, if you have to be accountable, and then you have to change the behavior.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now she's just a regular murderer.
I think that's why I was super happy because I was a little afraid that her character being that she was being handled by two different directors in a relatively short amount of time that it would have felt like two completely different versions. But this feels like the next step from whatever we got at the end of Birds of Prey.
Right. And I liked that. I kind of wanted it to get more. I felt like we did sort of give her this like B story that wasn't
She
as
wasn't the lead.
important as anything
Yeah,
else. And
yeah.
I want Harley front and center, but that may wait for a lot of new great characters like Ratcatcher 2,
I
who stole
loved
the whole
her.
movie.
I loved her. Everything about her was fantastic. Yeah.
She has the best line. She's the heart of the whole
She's the
team.
heartbeat. Yeah. Anytime she smiles, I melt. Her interaction with King Shark when she's like, he has kind eyes, and then switching it right back, like, you tried to eat me. It's so great. Like, I love, she's fantastic. Kudos to the casting department for that one.
She's one of the few characters that tries to really understand everybody.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't really just throw out anything. She tries to understand King Shark's reasoning. Like, you wouldn't eat your friends. What if we were friends? Then
Right.
would you not do it? Why are you afraid of rats? And then even when all the rats are coming, she like puts a hand on Bloodsport.
She covers Bloodsport, which is,
like,
I was like, oh my God.
It's like, those are like the little moments that elevate that character.
Yeah.
She's the only one who seems to be remorseful about Polka Dot Man. Mm-hmm. She's the only one who, even when like Amanda Waller comes in, she's like, oh, it's fine, you woke me up. Like, she kind of just is kind to everyone that you almost don't believe she would be a villain.
Right.
Which is, they're like, she just robbed a bank with rats. She robbed a bank,
but she happened to have rats, which is a weapon.
Right. Which they considered a weapon. And you get Taika Waititi's fun little cameo of why rats and finding your purpose. And man, when she pulls it up, it does the "this isn't your city." I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's great. The one character that I just didn't connect with that much, not because he was bad in it. Peacemaker just didn't necessarily work for me. Some of the jokes are good, and I love when they were going tit for tat on kills, when Bloodsport and Peacemaker were going tit for tat. But I think some of it is because I could sort of telegraph where that was going, and at the end of it, I never really believed he had a moral compass where I was like, oh, there is some good in him. I always felt like, no, Peacemaker's just batshit crazy, and there's nothing about him.
Well, I think he is the one that is the villain of the team. And correct. I think that kind of is sought after. And they're like, well, I think you're just using liberty to do whatever you want. And at least I don't justify kill kids. He's almost like the next level of John Walker. He's almost the next step of U.S. Agent, where you kind of get the sense that like he can come back and be talked down, and he will. Peacemaker's just insane.
He's just nuts.
And some of the jokes worked. Some of them were a little like, oh, okay, I guess.
Some hit, like, they gave a lot of the low bass toilet humor to him, and Cena's good at delivering comedy. Like, so it's not on him. It's just like some of this just doesn't fit into the world that we're sort of already putting out here. It just seems bizarre.
Yeah, I liked him enough to be curious about the show, but I don't think they gave him a big enough arc for me to feel like he needs one.
That's where I'm at. Like, I liked him enough and found him interesting enough that I'm curious to push the button when HBO Max drops it. But he's the one character I'm like, I'd rather watch a show about Ratcatcher and King Shark and what they go to do on than that guy.
Yeah, well, he's probably the most two-dimensional, because his agency is just freedom and peace by any and all means necessary. I'm going to be the one that gets the drive and kills whoever I need to kill. And when you just have that, you have to assume then that whatever this mission is going to be in the show, that it'll be something where it's like, well, we need somebody who will just like go get it done.
Go do there is no
somebody basic who's not going to question us.
Right.
Which either has to challenge that and build out the character more, or just be like a fun 8 episodes.
Yeah. Or like, I'm just the one mission. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Because there's nothing redemptive about him. He doesn't have any moments. You get the sense that he kind of feels bad. Like, I do like the scene with Rick Flag when he's like, Colonel, come on. Like, I don't want to do this.
I'm doing this for a reason. Like, you know what I'm doing. This, if this gets out, it's going to be terrible. And like, you can also tell that he sort of admire, like he says it in a way that he admires Rick Flag. Like, you are a U.S. patriot. I know who you are. Please don't make me do this, because I have to. My brain is fixed enough that I'm on a one-track mission. I gotta do this. And that part makes sense, and that does give him a little bit of humanity. Even the way he looks at Ratcatcher when she sees, he's like, oh, shit, now I have to kill this kid, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I think you get the sense that he doesn't really want to do it, but he will.
Right.
And I think those are the moments where you're supposed to be like, oh, there's someone underneath this. Mm-hmm. But he just never had a big like hero moment like everybody else did. Everyone else got
Right.
these like, oh, there's good in them. And I didn't get that from Peacemaker. And I don't know that you're supposed to, but the same way that now Falcon and the Winter Soldier is like, you should care about John Walker. I'm like, I don't though.
No, I
Like,
don't. I don't. And they like I watched it again. There are moments they try to like when Bloodsport is going over his speech about how his father used to trap him and like punish him. They do a shot of Peacemaker and he kind of just does like like he relates like you and I've been through that exact same thing. Like what you're saying, I 100% have been through that too. So they try to like subtext it in there, but some of the stuff, because everybody else gets an overt, besides King Shark because he can't speak, but everybody else gets an overt sort of moment, he doesn't, and that's where it's just like, because of my brain as a person who's been in films and seen enough of these things, where I sort of saw where Peacemaker was going from the jump, it would have been better had you kind of given us a heartfelt moment, so we were like, oh, maybe I'm not on the right track.
yeah, and I think that's the one thing that's missing because everybody else, like King Shark is fun, but he is just like the big brute,
Yeah,
which I don't mind. But I really like him in the Harley Quinn show, and so
I
I was
think
like,
that's where
oh,
my
I
brain is. Yeah,
guess
yeah.
fine, like it's funny and
Take
it's
this one.
good.
Yeah,
But like Polka Dot Man got such a great arc of, oh, my mom did all this to me to be a superhero, and it's the last thing he says. And
for a character that in the comics has always been a laughing joke, they actually made me give a damn about him, and which is impressive. Like
well,
that's
you get back to that distorted body horror. He gets those dots, and then they start to
yeah,
bulge, and this like he's an experimentation gone wrong, and he
yeah,
doesn't like. And the best joke of the movie is, I see my mom everywhere. That's the best reoccurring joke. We keep seeing these
yeah.
characters. She's the kaiju for like a full minute and a half.
It's great. It's that scene really works because I mean the beginning point of this movie, Waller says she's going to make Bloodsport a leader, and in the end, he goes full Cap America and starts calling out people's jobs. And I was like, oh yeah, there he is. He's in full leader mode now. I dig it. This all came full circle.
Yeah, they gave him what I always say: every movie with the leader needs their Captain America moment. To call it Cap, like
Yeah,
they gave him that, and I was like, oh, that's great.
yeah,
I'm a sucker for when somebody just gets that time to call all the shots and everyone
yeah.
just does it. I love it. We had more great cover your face moments. Everyone has to get on the mask.
It's so cute though because like King Shark covering is just like, you don't need to, sir. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I liked seeing how everybody did it. Harley just getting down, Polka Dot Man just covering up,
Yeah,
Ratcatcher having the mask, and Bloodshot just popping off.
just shooting. By the way, his suit is
His
phenomenal.
suit, his guns, that
Yeah,
whole like Lego building it out stuff
he
was
just clicked. I was
incredible.
like, yeah,
That was
it was
some of
great.
the coolest shit that they never had to explain. And I just
Yeah,
was like, I love this. I
yeah.
love that we're not going over what his suit does.
Don't need
He just
to.
does it. We
Just
get
do it.
it. He's got all these pieces and they make stuff. Great.
Yeah,
When he's out of it, it's fantastic. Yeah, the movie handles all of that well. And yeah, but yeah, Bloodsport's arc, Ratcatcher's stuff. Like we got all the characters, but then there's Starro, who is another. I mean, we're here. I
we're
feel
in it.
like a friend of ours after the movie was like, "Can you believe it? We did Starro," and I was like, "I can because we've been doing these movies since like 1998,
Yeah,
and we've been doing them pretty well since like 2002."
right.
So I'm no longer surprised when the big weird character who was super popular to some people gets the spotlight.
Yeah,
There's nothing left
it can't
that
shock me
shocks
anymore.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we made WandaVision. You know what I mean? Like whenever we're like, oh man, I'm like, well, we did a Dick Van Dyke pilot with a robot and a witch.
I
Like,
think my shock level went out with James's first one when Guardians of the Galaxy came out. I was like, all right, cool, all bets are off. They can do whatever the hell they want to now at this point.
yeah, I'm now just like, yeah, cool. If anything, I'm like, you guys should be doing more.
Right,
Audiences will accept it. Just
we
keep
are
going.
in. Yeah,
I loved Starro. I'm a sucker for that kind of villain, for that kind of story that's like we really are just torturing it. Like it could have just existed. and
Yeah,
nothing would have been bad. And in the comics, Starro does go through this hive mind character to sometimes just being a big bad beast, but
right.
I prefer the hive mind.
I dug it because while he is technically and physically the villain, he's not. Amanda still is, and Marshall Peacemaker
the
in
the
those folks are.
government,
The
yeah, is
government is the villain, but like he is as much the victim as the Suicide Squad team is, which is a cool layer to sort of put on there. Like, yes, these guys are fearing and running for their life, and yes, you get the colorful Suicide Squad versus Starro font tag, but at the end of it, it's really like Starro is just trying to survive.
his
Because
last line, I was happy drifting through space looking at the stars.
yeah,
And then when you cut to that footage of them just with this star locked in, doing this almost like W. Bush era torture photos from like Iraq. That's like, I think that's just always gonna hit audiences that are our age a little bit harder, because like
correct.
that was very real
Yeah,
and terrible. So it's like, even when I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, God!" It really does just makes you crawl a
let your skin
bit,
crawl
like,
100%.
because it is just an animal, and I'm always like, it's just an animal. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna be able to watch this Lamb movie by A24. I'm just not gonna be able to do it. Even in
it
the
looks so
trailer,
good and weird,
when
but I'm like, I
when
can't.
she's
Yeah,
dragging it by the horn, I'm like, that's too much. We're
like
hurting
nope.
the animal too much. I can't. I won't do it. I
Yeah,
don't like it. I don't want to be here. But I like, so I was like, no, like, he's innocent. He's just a giant psychic starfish.
yeah.
But I thought that was all great. I thought it was interesting that they still killed him, because there was, for a while, like, Thinker sets up this parallel of like, oh, you're doing that to rats. I've got something similar with humans. So
Right.
I was almost waiting for Ratcatcher to have this like, hold on moment. I almost thought the team was going to stop, that she was going to like look around and see these similarities and be like, just go.
It's funny. I did for a moment too. The only reason why I turned, because I think the audience would have been fine had he done that like the second he escaped. But once Starro in current time started hive minding a bunch of current people, then it's like, nope, this guy's got to die, because now he's affecting people that I've actually seen and they're running around and I've seen live. So if it was stuff in the past with the people that have already been hive, like, yeah, that was the government stuff. They kind of effed that up. It became an issue where like this person now has to die, and the audience would not have been comfortable if he lived or was redeemed
Yeah.
after that, because those folks are dead. Like they've already said that once they hide, they can't come back.
Right. They got that starfish.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's so good. And they peel it off. Oh man. I haven't seen anything like it.
There's some horrific moments in this movie.
It's like sitting there with his stomach
That's
open.
I was like, what is going on?
That's the stuff where I'm like, oh, we haven't done this in a superhero movie. This is so great.
And that's where I sat a good portion of this film. I was like, I love all of this. I really wish that that Marvel could get to do Punisher and Blade the way that it should be done, because this is some of that R-rated stuff that I need to see over there.
It's the one area where DC can just mop the floor.
They can do whatever they want. Yeah.
They like the two times they have Birds of Prey in here, I'm like, yeah, they're doing stuff that Marvel's never going to do.
Yeah.
We're never going to have a Black Mask type villain cutting off faces
and making a woman get on the table and like strip and like, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but like that's the stuff that like, oh, that gets underneath it. Yeah.
Even the way he acts is so crazy in that movie. Like, these are my things. Like,
exactly.
We're never going to get that in Marvel.
No.
We're just not. So I'm like, they should lean into this more, like lean into the comic booky stuff. I don't need to see Batman drive a Chrysler around and pretend it's a Batmobile and beat up innocent people. Like, just like make him fight Clayface and Freeze.
Like give me the crazy shit that Batman goes through. Like I've seen the Riddler, I've seen the Joker. What is Man Bat doing right now? Let me look at that.
Let's really crack this open. We keep doing the Joker. I get it. We as a society no longer need the Joker, really. We're done.
Correct.
But yeah, the Starro stuff was awesome. I also can't think of any other like kaiju movie where we don't have something on the hero side of equal size.
Parallel, right?
And so I was really impressed that they figured out how to like take this thing down.
I'm sitting. I kid you not. I was sitting there. I was like, they don't have anything big enough. Like, how are they going to do this? Like, I'm curious now, and I was that's why I was enthralled. I was
I
like, I just want to see how they do this because this is
I was
fascinating.
like, what character is about to show up?
Yeah,
What thing do they have that we haven't seen yet?
right.
What yeah, and then it was just like rats. So I thought that was all great. But I think that's the appeal of the R-rated villain movie. Are these things that we're not going to do in the Marvel? The body horror we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
these weirder themes of like actually the villain is like, we talked a lot about on our Marvel pair up show, not a lot, but of like some of this like military propaganda that may or may not be in it. And I feel like this is a pretty big like fingers up to the
To
whole
the US,
complex.
yes.
Like, so it's like, yeah, we don't really get I love the Marvel movies, obviously, and I love it when we get
Yeah,
complicated. We've spent more time talking about that than we've talked about like your marriage, and so clearly that's there. But like these are the tougher questions that I think DC can ask
right.
that they really got to do more of. Like Birds of Prey kind of gets into it with just getting past bad exes, getting past being a bad person, these horrible types of people that exist in the world. And here we have a whole movie that's like, we kidnapped and tortured a creature in space, and then the American government covered it up because they suck. And this version of Nick Fury is like ready to kill everybody just to cover that up, because
Yeah,
that keeps the peace, I guess.
right.
And that's it. Like, and it's great because you do kind of sit there and you're like, Starro wasn't, he was just kind of hanging out.
He was just doing his thing, and then you guys brought him here and tested him and tweaked him and did all this stuff for your own propaganda. Yeah, some of this you earned.
Yeah, like you kind of get it. Like, so that's all great. I think that's why we go to things like this, right? The Boys, Deadpool, these harder R stories that are sort of challenging the norms that Marvel sets up that we wouldn't have without those
They wouldn't
movies.
exist. Yeah,
That
Invincible wouldn't
even
exist if we not had the Marvel like that
yeah,
type of stuff. Yeah,
and even the Marvel shows get to push back at that a little bit. Like there were heavier themes of race and
mm-hmm.
self-love and grief,
Grief. Yeah,
but crank up even higher. I mean, could you imagine how powerful an R-rated John Walker when he killed that guy would have been?
oh my
Like we
goodness.
got some blood on the shield, and
Oh,
that
we
was
would have
enough.
seen an entire like smashed. Oh my god, that would have been insane.
Yeah. So and this was also, I think, a better way. You have Peacemaker who's kind of that way, but we have now done The Boys. We have done John Walker. We've done a lot of evil supermen who represent the worst of the country. And this movie doesn't have that. It just is going, here's the reality of it.
Right.
Which I was like,
this is what we're actually in.
We've done that a lot now. And I was like, this is such a unique way of doing it by instead of having this character who's like, he represents what America really is and not what it could be or what it thinks it is. It's a storyline that's like, here is a bad thing that it's done.
Yeah.
And and all these characters are going to react to it. Rick Flag's going to freak out about it. Peacemaker's going to do what he thinks is right. And Bloodsport's going to take this weird road of like, we won a city. We can't win them all. Yeah. I liked that too, because it's it's how everybody else thinks, but in a way that doesn't hurt anybody.
Right.
Like we kind of have this like, well, we can't win them all. I have to kill Rick Flag to get this drive.
And you can tell that Harley's not entirely on board with that. She's like, we probably should tell. We like kind of should tell this, but she understands it.
And we saved a city. We can't win them all. I was like, that's great. That's also great. Just like now we're free. We can go do whatever we want. We're not going to get away with everything.
Yeah.
So that was all very good. I think also when you get to that R rating, you do see these redemption arcs that both TV and R ratings allow. I think superhero movies, Marvel movies tend to just be like, look how good this person is.
Yeah, like it's usually Batman's the outlier, but they're usually too much of a godlike character or too much of a saint that we can't throw dirt on them because it's going to sort of sully their name or sully their product or sully the way we can sell them. Whereas this one is like, people are flawed. People are human. They're on both sides of this coin. And this is what you get. I I've always related to characters like that more. I've never been that big a fan of Superman because he is usually the Boy Scout. I didn't until we got into the films. Wasn't that big a fan of Cap for that very same reason. I like the gray area stuff a little bit more. That's where I
Well,
sit in.
I think people also relate to it because it's like, well, everybody's made mistakes.
Right.
We like, even Matt Damon has made mistakes. Uh, so I think that's great. So
Did you see this in the theater or at home?
I saw this twice in theaters. I went to a press screening a few days before, which was a very unique experience for me because, everyone was sort of like, I have a lot of friends in the press, so I'm not trying to be rude, but there was not a lot of laughter and reacting.
It's very straight laced.
A little stuffy in there. Yeah. And me, I like to watch the movie and be like, "Ow!"
Yeah.
I gotta sit in the back. I can't.
I'm in the back row, like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. Then I saw it in IMAX, and I was surprised that there also weren't a lot of laughs and oh crap moments. And I was like, I guess I'm just the only one.
Just me.
But I mean, I think this, you could probably get away with watching this at home. I think seeing the kaiju on the big screen is fun. Having that sound is great. There are moments
that I think really, like, I saw it in Dolby. I didn't see it in IMAX, so I had the sound. There are moments, like, I think Harley's whole action sequence is pretty cool to see in the theater. I do think the kaiju stuff, I mean, they shot this with an IMAX camera, so that was the point of a lot of this. But there's a lot of dramatic or slow-paced film pieces in here that I think you can get a good 2 hours of this film is perfectly fine watching at home, and the extra 30 minutes that are not, you can still do that. Like, I don't think you need to see this film in the theater. I do think you'll enjoy it a little bit more, but I don't think you need to. Part of the reason why I think you need to see in the theater, though, is because if the audience is full, this is almost like it's a quasi comedy. The laughter sort of bleeds. However, audiences aren't full.
Apparently, I had two audiences that were just not in the mood.
They're like, nope.
It's like, man, come on. The press isn't going to get to it. Opening weekend, IMAX in Burbank is just sitting here like, quite. James Gunn is not an A24 director. Have a good time. Like, this isn't the Green Knight. React.
Yeah. My audience was pretty joyful, so I actually had a good time in my theater. Yeah.
Ooh. So just like, all right, fine. No one wants to be excited today.
Yeah.
Everyone, well, we're all just sitting there with masks, still freaked out.
Still scared shitless.
Speaking of being there with masks, the movie has opened to 25 million. Before, we sing the siren song that the rest of Twitter seems to, the Delta variant is out there. Theaters still aren't at full capacity. We don't know what the HBO Max numbers are. I'm getting tired of this ping pong game every week. I love talking about box office numbers. I love being like, ooh, did audiences connect to this? Why or why not? But, it's not even really, I think I've said this on the show before. It's not even really worth doing right now.
It's unfair right now. It's just not like there's too many qualifiers and not enough data to sort of support anybody's theories or any of this.
That's the weird part is I'm like, okay, 25 million and everyone's like, see, and I'm like, you're only really doing this because people like to take DC and Marvel and make them fight. Yeah. And for some reason, people also connect their joy to how it does financially and on Rotten Tomatoes. Correct. As if it like justifies it, as if you can't like something unless everyone's behind you.
Yeah.
Which I kind of get, I guess.
I get it to an extent, but there's been a lot of people on this who have always been anti-DCEU, and they're like, I'm going to use this time as the time to shit on DC. Even the fans there have been some DC fans, because this is a film directed by a Marvel director. They're like, nope, I don't like that one. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? You've got a good film here. And then you look at Rotten Tomatoes and it's scoring well, both critically and fan-wise. And then you see these numbers and you're like, something is off.
I don't understand it, because I get that we now live in a Twitter social media world where if I go, I like something, 5 people are going to be like, boo.
Ooh, yeah.
So we get into this weird competitive nature, and it helps to have Rotten Tomatoes, audience and critics, and a big box office. And it also means that you're probably going to get more of the thing that you like.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it doesn't degrade your enjoyment of a movie, especially when there are 9,000 different factors, including a global pandemic at your box office.
Yeah.
And people, I bring up the Twitter fighting and the fandom in this because I feel like we're picking and choosing. You look at like last weekend with Jungle Cruise, 30 million on Disney Plus, I think. 30 million in the
Yeah.
theater at
It's
least.
around this
And
55,
no one
60
was
million
like,
range.
is this the end of Dwayne
The
Johnson?
Rock is over.
We just kept going.
Like,
The
okay.
weekend before that, it was like 12 million for Old and 10 million for Snake Eyes. And no one was like, G.I. Joe is gone forever and M. Night Shyamalan has returned to glory. We all
Yeah.
just went, sure.
Okay.
The weekend before that, I think, was Black Widow or Space Jam.
So. Right.
Space Jam, which was another kind of like, hey, it did it. We all moved on.
Cool.
And before that was Black Widow, and we were like, it's back,
Look,
baby.
the theaters are open. Everyone's
Nothing
back.
has broken 100 million. Nothing has made it anywhere close to anything else in its franchise. F9 didn't do it. Black Widow didn't do it. The Rock didn't do it. M. Night Shyamalan didn't do it. G.I. Joe didn't do it. Of course, the R-rated DC movie didn't do it. This is a franchise that also has had diminishing openings release after release since Batman versus Superman.
We laughed and we joked a little bit about the article difference of the being in front of the Suicide Squad, but there's a brand awareness to Suicide Squad that is not positive. Like that movie was trashed. And so typically the people who, after seeing one, they don't return for another go again. Like, oh, cool, you got it fixed this time because it looks more along the lines of what they had the first time. If they didn't like it the first time, they're not coming back. And all of those factors together, and mind you, still a fucking pandemic. Yes, these numbers make sense. Like, of course, nothing's going to open big. And this is going to continue for the rest of this year.
It doesn't mean that it's bad.
No.
It doesn't mean that we're not going to get another Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. It doesn't mean that he's not. They're already making a Peacemaker show.
Right.
So the powers that be are pretty happy with what James Gunn is doing.
Correct.
Is it going to be connected to everything? We don't know. We have a lot more left in this canon. We've got Black Adam coming. We've got a ton of HBO Max.
The Batman
movies.
is filmed and
Batman,
post credit.
Flash is coming.
Aquaman's being filmed now. Like this isn't stopping this DC train. Like they're going to continue to do this. And this number doesn't mean anything because everyone is treating this year as like we understand none of these numbers matter. Like none of these matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people get it, but there's always going to be someone who's like, well, it didn't do well. So ha ha ha.
Yeah.
I guess it's like when Birds of Prey came out and didn't do great, and everyone was like, it means that they're not sexy. And it's like, that's the single stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's the dumbest thing I've ever. Yeah. The reality is that it was a confusing title. No one really knew what it was. It was R-rated, which unless you're Deadpool, like so many R-rated movies that do well. So it's weird when something doesn't do well to be like, it's R-rated. But it also isn't weird when it's part of a franchise that hasn't been R-rated the entire time.
Right. You've been PG up to this point, and then you bury the title of your most important character to the back end of 15 words.
And yeah, like some mainstream people don't love this. They've also burned off their Snyderverse fans.
Yeah.
Like Warner Brothers is now in a weird place where some of their diehards are like, y'all just keep taking these movies away from the directors. Right. I'm not showing up for you anymore.
Correct.
That's
a part of this too. Like the David Ayer fans who are like, we want the David Ayer cut or all that stuff. They're like, nah, we saw what you did to Zach. We're not giving you money now that you got the guy that you think you like to do this. No, we're not.
Yeah. For this. So, but it's like, they're not going to stop.
No.
Like, and who knows? It might have legs. Free Guy might not do great. Like it's next week is next week. Like we'll see again, but I just think it's silly right now. It's interesting to talk about because we're seeing it fluctuate. Like
it's going all over the place. Yeah.
But like this thing ain't over yet. Like,
no.
And who knows?
And it seems like it's picking up. What I am interested to see, because these numbers are so low, and this was supposed to be the sort of the big tent pole of August before we kind of move into the fall stuff. I am interested to see if any of these studios start moving dates again, because this box office is low enough that if we have something like Bond is the biggest one that I think, and Bond and Dune cost a significant amount of money.
Well, yeah, Dune is doomed.
Dune is going to be a bomb. Like they might as well already print those articles up now. It's going to tank, and that does not have anything to do with the quality of the film because I think it's going to be glorious. I might be the only person in that theater.
That might be better. Yeah, it's I don't know. Because like my dad's not going. He's gonna keep doing it this way. I mean, I go because I feel fine,
Yes, I feel
but I
good.
also am feeling less fine each week.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point as I see these California numbers start increasing. I'm like, maybe I should not be out here like this.
Especially on these weekends where there's two that I want to see. Like next week is a Free Guy and a Don't Breathe 2
Yeah,
situation. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to. Can one of those be on a streaming
that's
service?
I know. I've already looked up. But I was like, Don't Breathe. Are you going to be on? Because that's the one I want to see both, but I really want to see Don't Breathe too because I love Don't Breathe one. But I've been searching like, are you going to be anywhere online? And it's not. I'm just like, oh
I thought don't the Free Guy had a Disney Plus release, but I guess not.
no. And that's where I'm at with some of these. I'm like, if you do both, I'll watch your stuff, and I will shout from the rooftops like, hey, everybody, you should watch this. It is getting to that point with these only theatrical release, sort of like only in theaters, where that's starting to become a threat more so than it is a good thing. Like, hey, you can only see this in theaters. You willing to risk it?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, this whole narrative of, oh, it's all over. I'm like, it's not. It's not over.
DC has 6 films on in the pipeline, 3 of them done. So
Yeah.
stop.
There's going to be a big asterisk on this entire year for box office money. It's going to result in more studio lawsuits, and we got to pay these actors.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that, but I don't know. I thought this movie was great.
I did
thought
too.
It was very
I enjoyed
fun.
this.
I hope that it keeps going. I hope everybody calms down about the box office. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the show. So leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you thought on YouTube. Subscribe away. Follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI and on Instagram at Hollywood Already Did It. I'm at As Always Blake, and Terrence is at Terrence Tatum. And we might see you next week.
Who knows?
I guess we will, because Marvel Parap will start again with Marvel. Whatever.
We will be in one. Yeah, on one of the shows. Yeah.
Great.